Hi all. Okay, so today I'm talking partly about my history, right? Because I was born in 1974, so for the 80s, I was 6 when it started. So that's when I grew up. That's my time. And in the 80s, we were all about kind of cool future stuff, right? The future was going to be fantastic. Well, some of it was going to be fantastic. Certainly, when we have a look at the Back to the Future. Now, there's a nice list, if you want to go and check on Wikia, there's a list of all of the things that Back to the Future suggested were going to happen in 2015, this year. And there's like 30 or 40 of them, so there's no way I can go through them all. But some of those ideas we have, and some we have in different ways. So the hoverboard, this is one of the classics of the 80s. You know, skateboarding was big when I was a kid, right? You guys moved on and do all sorts of new things, but we had skateboarding, and that was great. And the future was going to have hoverboards. And, well, yeah, we kind of do, but they're really terrible. So these guys have created an electromagnetic hoverboard, and so you can actually get on this, and this is Tony Hawk getting on the hoverboard. Now, it only works on this platform. It's really cumbersome and awkward, and as you see when they stand on it, I can't go to that, but it's hovering there, and it's kinda here, but it's actually almost impossible to use. Because the problem is, although we had the ideas of things like, you know, skateboard, that's fun, hoverboard, even more awesome, the challenge is once you're actually hovering in midair, it's really hard to control. Right? And so our vision of the future didn't match with what would actually be useful and great. It was kind of, you know, okay. Flying cars, right? So we can get flying cars. They don't look like the kind of magnetically hovering awesome car from Back to the Future. They look like a car with wings bolted on the back. Because that's what they are, right? So you can buy a hover car, well, a flying car. And this is currently available technology. So we are actually in that future where people can buy flying cars. You can't really take them anywhere, and you still have to get a permit to fly them, and still have to get a pilot's license, and they kind of look like a plane smashed into a car and someone sort of bolted it together, right? It's not what we envisioned as the future, but it's what we got. Video telephony. I video chat with my kids whenever I'm away, right? Skype, you jump there, it's done, we're done with that, it's fine, easy. Video telephony, that's part of our future. Augmented reality. Now, we've got a set of these Meta 1 space glasses, and the field of view is kind of about this big. It's tiny, and it's bulky, and it looks kind of a bit geeky and nerdy to use, but it's not like the Back to the Future scenes of augmented reality, where the huge shark attacks. Now, I don't have time to get to that point, but this is Marty McFly walking through the future. In Back to the Future, they had flying drones. Right? They had police drones that would track you and like be able to detect what was going on and follow you. Actually, yeah, we do have those, right? The AR Parrot drones. A lot of the US police forces are using drones to do surveillance now. There are some issues around that. And in fact, drones are one of those things which, although this is kind of a middle ground, it's not the utopia of Star Trek. Star Trek paints a human future where we are nice to each other, right? Everything is wonderful, right? It's utopia. And at the other end, you can think of like Mad Max, right? I do not want to live in the Mad Max future, right? This is dystopia. This is where everything is absolutely terrible and you're going to die. Now, Back to the Future is somewhere in the middle. And unfortunately, being now in the future of my sort of 1980s self, one of the bits of the current time are these drones. Now, those two numbers, 41 and 1,147. 41 are the number of military targets that were identified by military drones, and 1,147 is the number of people killed by those drones. All right, so this has got a bit of collateral damage. Now, I was listening to people talking about this, and one of the things that has happened in Afghanistan is that young kids know that the drones are flying during bright sunny days. So if it's clear skies, the robots that bring death are above you. So you don't go out and play when it's sunny. You wait until it's cloudy, because then the robot drones can't kill you when you go outside and play. Now that's part of a dystopian future, which in the 80s we had Terminator, and we have robots that were killing people and were terrifying us, and that was the terrible future. And yet we've made that happen in parts of our world now. Right? So sometimes the 80s had bright, fun visions of hoverboards. Sometimes they had terrible future visions. And unfortunately, this one we've made happen. Of course, it's not all bad. I mean, they're not just robots. Sometimes you can actually get this, and this is actually a New Zealand company, the Martin Jet, which is a personal jetpack. So yes, you strap that thing on, and you can hover around as a human being, right? So, you know, yeah, sure, there are scary robots in the sky, but if I put this thing on, I'm up there with them, right? So this is kind of evens the score a bit. Robots in general are really interesting. You got the Terminator movies. Now, you know, in the 80s, we had the Terminator, and they said 97 was when Skynet was going to come online. 97? That's a long time ago. It must have gone on, and none of us noticed, right? I mean, it might be that it's Google is Skynet. It just hasn't worked out that it's a military power yet or something. Because certainly it's got enough information to start becoming sentient. And there are some who discuss that, you know, the amount of knowledge in Google is starting to actually potentially be intelligent in some way, right? Maybe Google is creating the Skynet that we feared in Terminator. Maybe. We don't know. We do know that we've got these kind of like, you know, little robots that run around our houses. Google did buy Boston Dynamics, which make these walking robots. Now, Google bought these, so these are now completely owned by Google, and they developed these dog-like walking robots. Now, these things are quite stable, so as they walk around, you'll see that someone will come from the side and bump into it, or kick it, and you know, it's fine, it'll keep walking. And this is the tech that, you know, is now linked to Google. This is part of Google's robotics research. And you know, it can run around outside and go up hills and go for jogs with you, and can come back down. You know, this is not like the Daleks of the future, right? From the Star Trek Daleks, you know, they couldn't come upstairs because they just had wheels. They were safe. These guys, if I saw a few hundred of these wandering around, I'm sure they're not moving super fast, but that kind of looks like slow-moving zombie speed to me, right? If there was going to be a zombie apocalypse, you'd expect them to be able to move at about that speed. And with hundreds of robot dogs, you know, these things are jogging, right? I'm going to have to keep running to get away from that. And then you have two, and then you could have four, and then so this is. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this as a potential future. But this is not the future. This is where we are now. Right? So my vision of the future has robots that do this for us. These are very expensive research robots, but so were Aibo, and so were the robot vacuum cleaners that you can just buy now, right? So this is coming, this future, and this is an interesting future. This is scary robot future to me. That's, you know, a robot. Yeah, click, thank you. That's a robot who's going to be your nurse, so that you don't have to talk to a human being when you come in. You can just talk to the robot. And they're saying how, like, you know, this is great research and it'll help the world, and this is just a scary looking robot to me. It falls in what we call in games the uncanny valley, right? Where you go from being like cutesy and cartoony to being kind of dead flesh zombie-like before you get to real human again. And the fact that this thing is kind of using humans in the back end and trying to track their movement to try and make itself seem more like a real person, this is kind of at that edge of I'm not sure we should be going there, right? But if you look at the movies, the Terminators, the robot companion movies, the human robot companion was one that is common. And I'm not sure if I want a bunch of these faceless robots chasing me around my hospital. So if we go back and say, okay, so we got some weird stuff. We go back before the 80s. We had Star Trek. Star Trek, you know, it's in the 70s and 60s, right? They had problems. They predict things like, you know, a tablet, which was, you know, a touch screen on a fairly flat board with lights on it. Looked awfully like an iPad. Sliding doors. You guys take sliding doors for granted, yeah? Well, you know, Star Trek invented the concept. Now, one of the things about both of these is, and about all of the Back to the Future stuff, is that we as creators, when you create media, when you create a film, when you create a game, you can tell your vision of the future. What's interesting about that is there are other people who will see that vision of the future. And it's not just a prediction of the future that may or may not happen. As soon as you make it into something you share, as soon as you tell people about your vision, they can see it and go, that would be awesome, we must have that. And then they go about making it come true. Now, I was just seeing that the sliding doors, one of the differences between the sliding doors that you have out here and the sliding doors in Star Trek was that the sliding doors in Star Trek were operated by a human being standing with a piece of rope, and would only open when someone intended to go through the door, right? Because, you know, the person pulling the rope wouldn't open it if someone just walked past the door. And also, if you ran at the door, the sliding door would open so you could run through it. Now, I don't know if any of you tried to run at a sliding door. Usually you run at a sliding door and have to stop and go, and then you can run out, right? This is going to be terrible for zombie apocalypse, right? Because we'll run to the automatic door and we'll stop and the zombie will hit us, right? So no, we want doors that open at the speed we're coming to them. So I just saw some Japanese researchers who have added a Kinect to the door sensor, right? So it sends out the infrared Kinect. It identifies the human is coming towards me and the speed at which that human's traveling, and only opens if you are traveling at it and at the time you need it to open, right? So they say, finally, with the Kinect, we can have the Star Trek sliding doors the way they were intended, right? But that is kind of where we're at, right? We see things in the future, we make games about them, we make movies about them, we make statements about them. I've had this problem when I was teaching game development, is that the first year I taught it in 2004, we wrote a research paper about the game engines that were available. And we did a big list of them, and we did critiques of, oh, this engine doesn't do this, this, and this, and this engine doesn't do this, this, and this. A year later, some of those game engines had seen the report we had written and decided to fix the problems that we had with their engine. And so now they were the way we wanted them to be, because that's what we had said we had wanted. And so you guys, as you create your desired future by making games about it, you inspire scientists and you inspire kids who are sort of 5, 6, 7 to want that future and to make that future. So my final message, and the message I want to kind of take from this, all of this kind of, we had lots of ideas about cool stuff. A lot of them we're making happen. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But if you dream about the future and you tell people about that dream, we can make it happen. Thank you.